He went on to say, I was opposed to an omnipotent God. I was not content to believe in a personal devil and serve him in the ordinary sense of the word. He said, I wanted to get hold of him personally and become his chief of staff. Crowley purported Satan's deception by stating, quote, Lucifer is my own guardian angel, and the devil Satan. This devil Satan is not the enemy of man, but he who made gods of our race, knowing good and evil. He bade know thyself and taught initiation. Aleister Crowley has been called the unsung hero of the 1960s and the father of the New Age movement. Time magazine, on their front page article on the New Age movement, declares that they don't know where the term came from or where the movement is going. But the evidence is all so clear for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. In Crowley's book, The Book of the Law, the spirit of Satan who channeled through him wrote of the coming of the new eon, a transliteration of the Greek word ionis for age. The book declares how this new eon of Horus will develop, how the child will grow up. These are for us to determine, growing up ourselves in the way of the law of Thelema under the enlightened guidance of the Master Therion. And just who is a Master Therion that is to guide the new age? At the end of the book, we discover that Therion equals 666, the number of the Antichrist, the one whom the Bible calls the man of lawlessness, the man of sin, who is to reign during the last period of history in the tribulation period and to be destroyed after he deceives the world by Christ at Armageddon. In Crowley's book Magic, which he spelled with his characteristic K at the end, it states, quote, Crowley's magic is a doctrine and a technique for establishing contact with extraterrestrial entities, spirits, demons. The whole of Crowley's doctrine is based on the Book of the Law, in which the future of humanity, the establishment on earth of a new order, is outlined. A large part of Satan's plan through Crowley was to bring in a drug revolution and to open up the masses to the demonic spirit world. Crowley's former disciple and secretary, Israel Regardie, stated, quote, Crowley became an expert at a dozen or so varieties of Hindu and Buddhist yoga. He experimented with more drugs more frequently than anybody in the West before the neurological revolution of the 1960s. In the Book of the Law, the satanic spirit that channeled through Aleister Crowley merely echoes the satanic strains from the Garden of Eden so many years ago. He states, quote, I am the snake that giveth knowledge and delight and bright glory and stir the hearts of men with drunkenness to worship me, take wine and strange drugs. Crowley interpreted this in his book Diary of a Drug Fiend to mean, quote, things like heroin and alcohol may be and should be used for the purpose of worshiping, that is, entering into communion with the snake that giveth knowledge and delight and bright glory. Aleister Crowley's twisted poetry glorified drugs as a door to the demonic. He wrote, quote, stab your demoniac smile to my brain, soak me in cognac, love, and cocaine. Heart on my heart, come out of the rain, let's have another go of cocaine. Always go on till you have to stop, let's have another sniff over the top. Robert Anton Wilson, who played a leading role in the counterculture revolution of the 1960s, stated in his book, Sex and Drugs, quote, Crowley played a decided role in developing the philosophy or mystique of the drug revolution. If Crowley was to implement the satanic new age of Antichrist, he knew, like Hitler, he would have to go after the impressionable youth to succeed. Crowley declared, let me seduce the boys of England, and the oldsters may totter, unconverted to their graves. Then these boys, become men, may bring about the new heaven and the new earth. But without an army I am useless. Give me my army, young men, and we will sweep these dogs into the sea. Crowley's new age of Antichrist consisted of many points for implementation if it was to succeed. Crowley taught the need for acceptance of the credo of the new eon, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. In the 1960s this became do your own thing. As we have seen, this also incorporated the idea of the drug revolution, but Crowley did not stop there. He also called for a sexual revolution. Crowley also taught the need for the synthesis of Western occultism and Eastern mysticism. He taught that there was to be rebellion against all established authority, especially Christianity. He also taught the establishment of the New World Order under the Antichrist. Crowley saw the United States as a place ripe for his hippie revolution and stated prophetically before his death in 1947, quote, I turn therefore to America, to a nebulous mass which I expect to develop into an organized galaxy. Every race, language, and creed of Europe is represented. All Americans are eager for power in one form or another. No humbug so outrageous as to deter them from running after the new religion. Crowley went on to state that their dauntless innocence persuade me that just as soon as they have acquired the critical faculty, they will progress spiritually more swiftly and sanely than has ever been known. Crowley had hoped to get his disciples into influential positions in America to influence the masses. One such disciple was former Harvard professor turned drug guru Timothy Leary. Timothy Leary, the defunct Harvard professor, led the drug revolution in the 1960s as he handed out mescaline and LSD like it was candy to the youth. This in turn opened up the hippie youth of the West to the pagan demonic gods of the East, who were also promoted by Aleister Crowley. We can see here that Timothy Leary is under a painting which bears the number of the Antichrist, 666, who is prophesied to rule the world until he's destroyed by Christ at Armageddon. Timothy Leary claimed that he came to the realization that he was to usher in Crowley's new age when he was using Crowley's tarot cards. Leary asked the question, "Who am I and what is my destiny?" Leary claims that he then cut to the Ace of Disc. Robert Anton Wilson declared, "This shows a large disc bearing the Greek letters to Megatherion, the great beast." Leary interpreted this to mean that he is Crowley reborn and is supposed to complete the work Crowley began. On a PBS interview, Timothy Leary let his hair down and admitted that he was carrying on Satanist Aleister Crowley's work and that the 1960s is when the plan began to come to fruition.
Well, I've been an admirer of Aleister Crowley. I think that I'm carrying on much of the work that he started over 100 years ago, and I think the 60s themselves. You know, Crowley said he was in favor of finding your own self and do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law under love. It was a very powerful statement. I'm sorry he isn't around now to appreciate the glories that he started.
As Satan guided Crowley, Crowley declared that his writings were to be, quote, circulated among the young, end quote. Crowley predicted that America would pick up, quote, a few axioms on which a working majority can agree, a few dogmas which it could rally. Do what thou wilt, of course, became do your own thing, and if it feels good, do it in the 1960s. Timothy Leary came up with a few of his own.
He looked out at that crowd and he said, turn on, tune in, that's right, and drop out.
Turn on, tune in, and drop out. We're turned on, and we're tuned in, and we're very dropped out. Turn on, tune in, and drop out.
Turn on, tune in, and drop out became turn on, tune in, and take over, as the easily led Crowleyan youth culture was deceived into believing that they had received spiritual enlightenment, when in fact they had swung the door open to Satan and his plan to destroy the world. Satan had effectively slipped in his destructive teachings to undermine traditional moral values through the cloak of a supposed anti-materialistic peace movement. Crowley taught that his satanic doctrine should be cloaked under the lie of love, and he believed the youth would fall for it. If Timothy Leary was Crowley's drug guru of the 1960s, Leary dubbed John Lennon and the Beatles as the four evangelists. The Beatles wrote the song Come Together as a campaign song for Leary's hopeful presidential bid that, thank God, never got off the ground. Crowley taught that he was to be the leader of a youth army and ended up finding himself on the front cover of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album. The song states that it was 20 years ago today that Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play. The album came out in 1967. Crowley had died 20 years earlier in 1947, the year Leary claimed he passed on the baton to him to bring in the Satanic Revolution. This made Sgt. Pepper a likely reference to Aleister Crowley, the father of the new eon. John Lennon summed up the entire Beatle philosophy before his death by quoting Satanist Aleister Crowley. Lennon stated, "The whole Beatle idea was to do what you want, right? Do what thou wilt." Sgt. Pepper's has been considered the greatest concept album in the history of music. In a few moments, we'll see what this concept was really all about.
When you go back and listen to Sgt. Pepper's, they were brilliant. Sgt. Pepper changed the world.
The Red Hot Chili Peppers, one of the most popular bands of the 1990s and into the new millennium, have also promoted homosexuality. On their album Blood Sugar, Sex Magic, they put a K at the end of Sex Magic like Aleister Crowley. At the MTV Music Awards, the Red Hot Chili Peppers gave special thanks to their lord Satan. First of all, I'd like to thank Satan. I'd like to thank Satan. Thank Satan. Satan. Crowley's works were not only what spawned the drug revolution, but the sexual revolution as well. Crowley was one of the most immoral and promiscuous men who ever lived, as well as a flagrant and flamboyant homosexual. The Associated Press stated of the Industrial Group Ministries album Psalm 69 that, quote, the album is named after a chapter of noted occult mystic Aleister Crowley's book, The Book of Lies, which translates as Psalm 69, the way to succeed and the way to suck eggs, Crowley's disturbed reference to oral sex. Part of Aleister Crowley's so-called sex magic included orgies with little boys whom Crowley molested.